someone is lying to you right now. Maybe it's your partner telling you they were just working late. Maybe it's your friends saying they're fine when they're clearly not. Maybe it's a coworker taking credit for your idea while looking you straight in the eye. The average person encounters between 10 to 200 lies per day, and research shows that most people can only detect lies about 54% of the time, which is barely better than flipping a coin. But what if I told you that in the next few minutes, I'm going to teach you the exact psychological techniques that FBI agents, intelligence officers, and professional interrogators use to spot deception in seconds? By the end of this video, you'll never look at conversations the same way again. And fair warning, once you learn these signs, you won't be able to unsee them. Let's get into it. Welcome back to our channel, where we decode the psychology of your mind. If you want to master human behavior, hit subscribe because we're diving deep. Think about the last time someone lied to you. Maybe you believed them in the moment, but later something felt off. That gut feeling, that wasn't random. Your subconscious picked up on micro-expressions, body language, inconsistencies, and verbal patterns that your conscious mind missed. The problem is, most people don't know what to look for. They focus on the wrong signals. They believe myths like liars can't look you in the eye, or they touch their nose when they lie. These are outdated stereotypes that actually make you worse at detecting deception. Today, we're breaking down the real science of lie detection. The psychological patterns, the neuroscience, the specific behaviors that separate truth from deception, and most importantly, how to use this knowledge ethically in your daily life. Because once you understand how lying works in the human brain, spotting it becomes almost automatic. Let's start with something counterintuitive. Not all lying is bad. In fact, psychologists recognize that humans are evolutionarily wired to deceive. Research from the University of Massachusetts found that 60% of people tell at least one lie during a 10-minute conversation. Why? Because lying serves social functions. White lies maintain harmony. When your friend asks if their outfit looks good, you might say yes, even if you think otherwise. That's not malicious, it's social lubrication. Evolutionary psychologists argue that deception developed as a survival mechanism. Early humans who could deceive predators or rivals had better survival rates. Children as young as 2 years old begin experimenting with lies, which actually correlates with cognitive development. The ability to lie requires theory of mind, the understanding that other people have different knowledge than you do. So in small doses, lying shows intelligence and social awareness. There are different types of lies that serve different purposes. Commission lies are direct falsehoods, telling someone something that isn't true. Omission lies are leaving out important details without technically lying. Exaggeration is stretching the truth to make yourself look better. And then there are lies of deflection, changing the subject or answering a different question than what was asked. Not all these lies are equal in their moral weight. Understanding why someone might lie helps you detect it. People lie to avoid punishment, to gain advantage, to protect someone's feelings, or because they've constructed an entire false reality. The motivation changes the pattern of deception. Here's something fascinating about the psychology of lying. Most people are terrible liars, but they think they're good at it. Research shows that when people lie, they experience what psychologists call cognitive load. Your brain has to do multiple things simultaneously. It has to suppress the truth, construct a false narrative, monitor your own behavior to appear normal, and watch the other person's reactions to see if they're believing you. This is mentally exhausting. The average person's working memory can only handle so much information. When you add the stress of deception, cracks start to form. And those cracks, they show up in predictable patterns that you can learn to spot. Now, here's where it gets dark. Understanding lying isn't just about catching dishonest people. It's about protecting yourself from manipulation. Because skilled liars, particularly those with dark triad personality traits like narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, they've learned to override the normal stress responses. They don't feel guilty about lying. Their cognitive load is lower because they've had extensive practice. These are the people who can look you dead in the eye and tell you a complete fabrication without flinching. Corporate fraudsters, con artists, abusive partners, they've mastered the art of deception. And if you don't know what to look for, you'll miss it every single time. But even skilled liars can't control everything. Neuroscience research using functional MRI scans shows that when people lie, specific brain regions light up. The prefrontal cortex works overtime trying to inhibit the truth. The anterior cingulate cortex fires up as it monitors 4 errors in your false story. The amygdala shows activity related to the emotional stress of deception. Your brain is working harder when you lie than when you tell the truth. And that extra effort, it leaks out through your behavior in ways that are almost impossible to completely suppress. The key is knowing where to look. Let me tell you about a real case that illustrates this perfectly. In 2015, a corporate executive was being questioned about financial irregularities in his company. On the surface, he appeared calm, confident, and cooperative. He maintained eye contact, smiled at appropriate times, and answered questions without hesitation. Most people watching would have believed him, but the investigator noticed something subtle. Every time the executive was asked about specific financial documents, his baseline behavior changed. His blink rate increased from about 15 blinks per minute to over 50. His hand gestures, which had been smooth and purposeful, became stiff and limited. And most tellingly, his verbal patterns shifted. He went from using contractions naturally like, "I didn't do that," to suddenly speaking in very formal language saying, "I did not engage in that activity." These weren't random changes. They were psychological leak points. Within 3 months, he confessed to embezzling over $2 million. The investigator knew what to look for. The executive's brain was betraying him even as he thought he was maintaining perfect composure. Let's get technical about how deception works in the brain. When you tell the truth, your brain follows a straightforward process. You access memory, retrieve the information, and express it. Simple. But when you lie, your brain has to complete several additional steps. First, it must activate the truth in memory, so you know what not to say. Then, it has to inhibit that truth, which requires the prefrontal cortex to suppress the honest response. Next, it constructs an alternative narrative that seems plausible. Then it monitors that narrative for internal consistency to make sure you're not contradicting yourself. Finally, it has to track the other person's reactions to adjust your story if needed. This is why polygraph tests measure physiological arousal. Your body responds to the mental strain of deception. Heart rate increases, blood pressure rises, breathing becomes shallower, and palms sweat. But you don't need a polygraph to detect these signs. You just need to know what behavioral cues correspond to this cognitive overload. Here's something most people get wrong. They focus on single signs and jump to conclusions. Someone touches their face, must be lying. Someone breaks eye contact, must be guilty. This is completely wrong and will make you paranoid and inaccurate. Professional lie detection isn't about isolated gestures. It's about pattern recognition and baseline deviation. First, you establish someone's baseline behavior. How do they normally act when they're comfortable in telling the truth? Everyone has different natural behaviors. Some people are naturally fidgety. Others are naturally stilled. Some people make intense eye contact. Others look away when thinking. You can't judge deception without understanding their normal. Then, you look for clusters of deviation. When someone shifts from their baseline across multiple channels simultaneously, verbal, non-verbal, and physiological, that's when your attention should spike. One sign means nothing. 3 or 4 signs appearing together. Now you're seeing something real. The research on nonverbal behavior and deception is fascinating but often misunderstood. Dr. Paul Ekman, who spent decades studying micro-expressions, found that liars do show brief flashes of genuine emotion that contradict their false narrative. These micro-expressions last only a fraction of a second, but they're there. Fear, contempt, or disgust might flash across someone's face. Even as they, re-smiling and telling you everything is fine, but you have to be looking for them. Most people aren't trained to notice these micro moments. Another misconception is that liars avoid eye contact. Actually, research shows that when people know they're under suspicion, they often overcompensate by making too much eye contact. They stare at you unnaturally, trying to prove their honesty. This is cognitive load in action. They're so focused on maintaining eye contact that other natural behaviors disappear. Their gesturing stops, their facial expressions freeze. They become almost robotic. That's your tell. Not the eyes themselves, but the overall rigidity that comes from trying too hard. Verbal patterns are actually more reliable than body language for detecting deception. When people lie, their language changes in predictable ways. They use fewer first-person pronouns. Instead of saying, "I didn't take your money," they might say, "the money wasn't taken." They're psychologically distancing themselves from the lie. They use more negative emotion words, even when describing supposedly positive events. They provide either too much detail, over-explaining to sound credible, or too little detail, keeping their story vague to avoid being caught in specifics. They also take longer to start answering questions because their brain needs extra processing time to construct the false response. And when asked to tell their story in reverse chronological order, liars struggle significantly more than truth-tellers because they've memorized a forward narrative, not the actual experience. Here's the practical application. How do you actually use this in real-life conversations? First, never accuse someone of lying based on behavioral cues alone. These are investigation tools, not proof. Second, use strategic questioning. Ask open-ended questions that require detailed responses. Liars prefer yes or no questions because they're easier to navigate. Ask them to tell you about the event starting from the end and working backwards. Ask unexpected questions that force them off their prepared script. Watch what happens when they're surprised. Third, pay attention to timing. There's often a delay between a question and the emotional response when someone is faking. If you ask someone about a tragedy and they pause before looking sad, that's a red flag. Genuine emotion is immediate. Performed emotion has a processing delay. Fourth, look for incongruence. Does their body language match their words? If someone says they're excited but their shoulders are slumped and their voice is flat, something doesn't align. But here's the ethical boundary you need to respect. Just because you can detect lies doesn't mean you should weaponize this knowledge. Using these techniques to manipulate people, To gain unfair advantage or to violate trust is crossing a line. The purpose of understanding deception is self-protection and clear communication, not domination. If you notice someone is lying to you, the mature response isn't to immediately confront them and prove you caught them. Sometimes the lie itself tells you what you need to know about the relationship. Sometimes people lie because they're scared, not because they're malicious. Use your judgment about when to push and when to simply note the information and adjust accordingly. Wisdom isn't just knowing the truth, it's knowing what to do with that knowledge. So how do you actually spot a liar in 30 seconds? Here's your practical framework. First 5 seconds, establish baseline. How is this person normally? Was there typical energy, eye contact, and speech pattern? Next 10 seconds, ask a controlled question you know they'll answer truthfully. Something neutral and non-threatening. Watch their behavior carefully. This is your comparison point. Next 10 seconds, ask your real question. The one you suspect might trigger deception. Watch for deviation from baseline. Are they suddenly more rigid, more verbose, using different language patterns? Final 5 seconds, follow up with an unexpected detailed question. If they hesitate, deflect, or their story becomes vague, your suspicion increases. This isn't foolproof. No method is. But this framework dramatically improves your accuracy from the baseline. 54% to potentially 70 to 80% with practice. That's the difference between being constantly deceived and having a genuine sense of who you can trust. Remember, the goal isn't to become paranoid and see lies everywhere. The goal is to develop discernment. To trust your intuition when something feels off because you now understand what your subconscious is picking up on. To protect yourself from manipulation while still remaining open to genuine human connection. Because here's the truth. The biggest lies aren't always the ones other people tell you. Sometimes they're the ones you tell yourself. And maybe learning to spot external deception will help you become more honest with yourself too. So here's your challenge. In your next conversation, try establishing baseline and watching for deviation. Don't accuse anyone, just observe. See if you can notice the patterns we talked about. And if you want to dive even deeper into reading people, the next video you need to watch is right here, where we break down body language secrets that reveal what people are really thinking. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Stop being deceived. Start seeing clearly.